While there may be disagreements about the impact of different family forms on children, there is widespread agreement among most experts that families continue to play a critical role in the lives of their members.
And there's some compelling evidence that families continue to love their children pretty well and invest in them as best they can. And children aren't going to get that at school. They're not going to get that from teachers. We're not going to get it at work. Families do that day in and day out, intimate kind of stuff.
I would say that families are doing better than the media might portray, given the broad diversity of family forms and all of the economic and social changes of the last 2 decades. There's a popular myth that the American family is falling apart, it's in decline, it's a vanished species, and actually I think the family is here to stay, although it's transforming itself in many ways that fit the challenges of our times.
When people talk about whether the family is in decline, I think often they're thinking about it in terms of the functions that the family perhaps once served no longer being met by the family unit. And so one example of that would certainly be care of young children that would be increasingly taking place outside of the family now, as women are no longer staying at home in the same numbers.
Some have argued that the family has become a bit obsolete in the eyes of children, that children look at parents as a bit old-fashioned and start looking to other media and other models for guidance.
And unfortunately, because there's less parent-child interactions with everyone working and children involved in so many recreational activities, that probably has a negative effect on the well-being of children and probably affects them throughout their lives. But the need of children to have parents there monitoring and engaging them is not gone away. It's just that parents have less time and energy to do what they've traditionally done.
Most children now receive their education outside of the family. Care for the elderly is increasingly happening outside the family. So the family, in that sense, has lost many of its functions. But for many people, it still occupies a central role in their lives.
Families are always changing. There are many indicators that show that families are no worse off, that people spend no less time with their kids than they used to. I think what we have is an evolving family system that meets the demands of people. There seems to be a lack of fit between some of our nostalgic ideals and the practices of everyday family life. But by and large, we're doing the same kind of changing that families have always done.
Those changes generally reflect similar shifts taking place in society overall.
Families are always related to the economy, the politics, the culture of the society. So in other words, if a society is predicated on a certain kind of subsistence practice, that's going to shape what families are like. In herding societies, young people go out when they're 10 or 12 years old and they hang out with the sheep or the goats or whatever they're herding. That produces a kind of a loose bond between the pre-adolescents and their parents. In industrial societies, we tend to keep kids in school longer. And then college is that point when they might break, or after college, depending on what they're doing. In agrarian societies, we put people to work and have lots of kids and structure large families and put them all together in one roof. The main point is the families are not separate from the society. Families and the economy and the polity are all wrapped up together.
Just as many societies have undergone tremendous change over the past 2 centuries, so too has the family. And yet the fundamental essence of this venerable institution somehow endures.
I think the family is just fundamental to the survival of the species. You've got to have some stable environment in which to raise the vulnerable newborn and protect them biologically and to raise them sociologically. So I don't think the family will change very much. I think we've probably reached the peak of divorce rates. I think they'll probably level out, maybe even continue to go down, because I think as the norms of family structure change, men and women will be more equal. And so that big source of tension that's always existed in the family will be mitigated dramatically.
women's continued participation in the labor market is unlikely to undermine marriage, to the extent that my own research and the research of others suggests that, in fact, having a stable job, good earnings, actually are associated with an increased likelihood of marriage, not a reduction in marriage. And I think one of the things that people had been concerned about was that these improvements in women's standing in the labor market were somehow a threat to the family. And I think the evidence for that is pretty weak. If anything, I think it goes the other way, that probably the best predictor of family stability is this economic stability.
And people, when they do get divorced, will want to get remarried and have children again. That seems to be the trend. I don't think that's going to change. Because these are fundamental to our species. We didn't survive as a species without the family. The family had to be invented by humans to ensure the reproduction of the species, so it's probably got some biological basis. It's not going to be wiped away by changing social and cultural conditions.
Our family is incredibly diverse, in terms of culture, in terms of gender identity, in terms of age and region. Luna has 6 grandmothers and 3 grandfathers, from blood family, from adoptive family, from our donors' mother and father are involved in the family. So we have really both experienced the richness of our biological families and really called them in and welcomed them into our family, at the same time as we have an incredibly loving, connected, committed, supportive group of people that are not biologically connected that we consider family, and that are doing childcare and that were part of our birth and that have, nurtured us and kept us alive in a lot of ways. And, I think we're in a really incredible time in history in terms of family, because the definition of family is shifting very, very profoundly. And, the mom, dad, 2 kids, dog, whatever, is a tiny minority of really what families are. We are a family just like our mothers and fathers were families. We're families like our neighbors are families. And we love each other, we care for each other, we go through major sickness and major issues in health, and we do all the things that married people do. And, for us, we're very normal. We are family.